Goff gives it to Gibbs. Straight up the gut. To the 2. To the 1. To the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs finds the end zone again, and the Lions are right back in this game. It's 31-27.
Hey, Dan. Paul Allen, how are you?
Good, PA. How you doing, man?
All right. Dan Miller, the 2-decade Vox for the Detroit Lions, frequent contributor, 9 to noon, at Dan Miller, Fox 2 via Twitter if you're interested. And when I say good morning, how are you? It's like a couple days removed, few days removed from that loss to Washington. I mean, like, what do you think about now? The what's next plan? Are there stages of professional grieving when your team, outside of those injuries, was just so good? Like, mentally, where are you?
Yeah, I think there's definitely phases you go through as you come out of that game. There's a little bit of shock when it happens, and I think the shock was just the way that they played, because it's just not the way that they've played all year. You know, they've had their moments where they turned the ball over, but, 5 turnovers, still scored 31 points, and I kind of thought going in that was really the only way they were going to lose that game, was if their offense didn't play at its, normal efficiency or something close to it, and they certainly didn't. I thought we'd have trouble defensively, and that's where we were. And then I think the biggest thing, PA, and I'm sure you can relate to this, and I know, we both have other gigs that we have to do, but it's, once that NFL season ends for you, your workload goes down significantly, and you kind of wake up on Monday and Tuesday thinking, okay, I got to do this today, or I got to do this today. And there is no this to do today. So it's like a couple of weeks of getting used to that part of your hectic schedule not being hectic anymore. So, it's a lot of disappointment, and that's what you're getting from the fans here, and that's what you got in the city right now. Is they felt like this thing had been set up. They had reached their goals. They wanted to win the North. They wanted to be number 1 seed. They wanted to have it run through Detroit. They got all that. They just weren't able to take advantage of it. At
Dan Miller, Fox 2 via X. Middle of the day yesterday, from Dan, some of you would apparently never take a better job with a massive raise at a competitor. Who cares where Ben Johnson goes? I'm happy for him. And now he's on the list of people who need to get their ass kicked on any given Sunday. Just handle your business. That, generally speaking, is not the Dan Miller I've come to know over the last decade. What got under your skin?
No, that was in answer to a lot of Lions fans were really angry that Ben Johnson took a job in the division, and further accused him of not having his head in the game because he was thinking about going to another job. There's a tweet before that in which I say how happy I am for Ben, and I am. I really am.
Right.
I don't care where he goes. I don't care if he goes to Chicago. You know what? I haven't spent my life worrying about what my competitors in business do. I handle my business.
Thank you.
And if I do my job well enough, then I don't need to worry about them. And honestly, I could care less that Ben Johnson took a job in the division, but a lot of people are really bent out of shape about it. And I don't get that. I think he had to weigh all his options and decide where his best place to go was. And that's really about it. And thankfully, I think, social media, things cooled after a while. And I think a lot of people just said, look, we're really raw from what happened over the weekend. This wasn't great timing by Ben Johnson, even though he has nothing to do with the timing. And I think that people came around and said, you know what, he's going to do what he's going to do. We still have to do our job. And if we do our job well enough, it's not going to matter where he is or what he does.
Yeah, I'm not Hank Fraley, the offensive line coach. All right. I've known Hank for over a decade, from when I met him here, when he was Norv Turner's offensive line coach. And he's a really good offensive line coach for the Lions. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I think recently he interviewed for the Seahawks offensive coordinator job. Is that true?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So you got that. You got Aaron Glenn. You got Ben Johnson. I mean, that is a price of being part of something good. However, I mean, we've done this long enough to know, ma'am, that, I remember, what perhaps my very best friend I've ever had in football is Kevin Stefanski. When he started out as Brad Childress's right-hand man, lasted here for a decade and a half. We go to San Francisco, get trucked, and then he leaves and goes to Cleveland. But up to the San Francisco game or the game before that, there would be doors closed. And, at whatever the level is at Allen Park or here in Egan, where you just have to trust that these constituents are putting in the requisite time to the game plan and servicing the fan base as much or certainly more than trying to get a jump to that next level. So, do people talk about that? Because it is a price of being good.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's questions about, what was he doing? Was he getting ready for the game? Or, some people were mentioning that he says he has his staff ready to go. Was he doing that? Well, he should have been getting ready for the game. I mean, that's part of the interview process. When you sit down with these teams, they want to have a pretty good idea who your staff's going to be. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he's already had those conversations with Dan Campbell about, hey, I want to take him. I want to take him. Can I? Yes, no. And those things get worked out. Same with Aaron Glenn. Look, I was in Washington covering that team when they took Norv Turner from Dallas. You will have a hard time finding two rivals that hate each other any more than that. People in Washington related. I guess people in Dallas were angry. But look, man, I'm happy for somebody who's bettering themselves and getting to, find a gig that they've worked hard for. Ben Johnson could have left 2 years ago. Ben Johnson could have left last year. I'm certainly not mad at him for leaving this year. And I knowing him the way I know him, there is no doubt in my mind that he was fully locked into that game on Saturday. Was it his best game? No, it wasn't his best game. Nor was it his offense's best game. But I just don't know that I can make definitive proof that those two things are related. Now,
Dan Miller, a longtime play-by-play voice of the Detroit Lions, 9 to noon. It's 11:13. Good morning. We were discussing this a little bit earlier. I mean, everybody knows who Mark Brunell is. They remember J.T. Barrett, Ben Johnson, of course, Hank Fraley from here, Steve Hyden, so on, Antoine Randall. Do you think the next coordinator comes from within or outside?
I think it's possible. I think Tanner Engstrand has kind of been the guy that people have looked at for a while. He kind of followed the same track that Ben did, tight ends coach, passing game coordinator, and then Ben took the job as offensive coordinator, and Tanner's been on that same track. I think, I think it could, I don't know. And Dan Campbell talked about it yesterday and said, look, I've already gone through the possibilities in my mind. He said, I've already, this was before the news broke. He said, I anticipate losing both of them. So he has thought about it, and he does have possible plans in his mind that he will now explore further as it is becoming reality. But this won't be something that just hits him, and I'll throw an outside possibility at you that wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world is he calls the plays himself, which he did at the end of 2021. And the offense was very smooth when he was here. The one thing he said yesterday was, we're not going to change who we are because we have to change coordinators. We like what we have. Now, there'll be little wrinkles that somebody brings in and a different way of doing things because no two people call a game exactly alike. But who they are is what Dan Campbell wants to make sure that he protects. And he's made a point yesterday. He's going to make sure that happens. And he also said that Jared Goff will have some input in this decision because he said, he loves the way his quarterback is playing, and he wants to make sure that he's comfortable with the direction that they're going. Year one, Anthony Lynn, Jared Goff, that was not a good match.
Right.
And he wants to make sure that doesn't happen again. So I think it's a long way of answering your question to say, I think the wheels are probably already in motion.
Yep.
And I think that Dan Campbell will be heavily involved in whatever happens once that offense is, given to somebody else, or he takes the reins and has an offensive coordinator in name.
You think when Frankie Luvu hit Goff hard in the head and it was uncalled, do you think that changed his outlook on the game, talking about Jared?
Well, I mean, it was a big point, and that pick six obviously, put Washington up 2 scores, and that was a moment. I thought Jared had an off day. It was just not the Jared Goff that we've normally seen. The pass there where he got hit was 5 feet over Tim Patrick's head, and Jared doesn't throw a lot of those. The pass later to to J-Mo looked like it could have been out a little bit further. J-Mo had the defensive back beat. It was behind him, and Sainer still gets the interception. It just didn't look all the way around, PA, like it was as crisp as it could have been. I don't know if that changed him physically, mentally, or anything like that. But, man, when I was walking out of there, and look, full credit to Washington, they took advantage of every single mistake we made. But it just, my first take walking out of there was just, man, we picked a really bad day to have a bad day.
Right.
And it was just, it happens sometimes, and we search for explanations, and maybe sometimes there just isn't an explanation. Yeah, you can criticize Ben for a call or Jared for a throw, but all in all, it just wasn't what we had seen for most of the season. Or, we've had a couple games where we turned it over a couple times, but it just wasn't what we had seen. And defensively, look, we've frankly been leaking for a while now. I think the game against you guys, everybody kind of held that up as where this defense was. There was a little bit of a mirage there, and that I think if Darnold has a better game, that game looks different. He had some opportunities to make some throws. But for the most part, over the last 6 games going into this one the other day, and now it would be higher, the Lions had given up 31 points a game. The injuries had caught up to them. They were not the same team that they were earlier in the season. Good enough to win because that offense was good enough to carry them to wins. And that's where, going back to what I said earlier, I thought offense is going to have a highly efficient day, one of those days where we go off and score on 4 straight possessions, something like that. But we couldn't give them short fields. We couldn't give them defensive points, and that's what we did.
How, with Ben Johnson, from what you know or what you've seen or heard, how is he leading man? I mean, he can lead offense. He can lead the offensive meeting room. It's different when you're leading the whole thing. Like that's one thing with Kevin O'Connell that has blossomed over the years. Clearly, he's an offensive mind, but the way he works with everybody, specifically when there's conflict, it's pretty high end.
That's a great question, and that's, as I've talked to people from Chicago, what I don't know. And that's not a negative. That's me not putting a question out there about Ben Johnson. That question has to be answered by every assistant who becomes a head coach. You can handle your, let's say Matt Patricia came in here defense. Matt Patricia did not handle the whole team well. There were issues there.
Yeah.
You now have to be the guy in front that takes all of the questions. And that Chicago media is not easy. You got to take all the questions and answer them, all the criticism and take it. And you're taking it for all 3 phases. And look, Ben is a hell of an offensive coach. And I think if you're Chicago, you should feel good about having him and having Caleb Williams and what those two might be able to do together. But there's a lot more to the picture that has to be answered. And I don't know the answer to that right now, and nobody does, because we haven't seen Ben take care of everything that you just mentioned, have your finger in everything, be involved in all conflicts, be involved in settling all conflicts, be involved in all phases, just, having a staff, trusting your staff. How much leeway do you give your staff? How much are you involved with your staff? It's just all these things have to be answered, and the best ones do it really well. The ones that don't, maybe it doesn't go so well. And there's examples of that we've seen around the league, and it's a tough gig, man. There's a lot that goes to it, and your plate gets a lot bigger when you go from where Ben Johnson was in Detroit to where Ben Johnson is in Chicago. And I again ask people to understand that's not me being negative about this in any way, shape, or form. It's just the reality of going from one gig to another, coordinator to head coach.
Dan, time for 2 more. How much does it work on Michigan sports fans, specifically college football fans? Ann Arbor go crazy when the Buckeyes win the national championship?
I think it would be different if they had not pulled up one of the most shocking upsets of the year this year in beating Ohio State.
Yeah.
I mean, believe me, I was with a couple of Wolverines last night. They still have no idea how they won that game. They had no business winning that game, but they beat them. And, that I think will be able to kind of be the elixir that allows them to kind of deal with this right now that Ohio State's won it. Look, I mean, they won it last year. Ohio State won it this year. But the fact that they were able to beat Ohio State this year when they were, 22 points underdogs, something like that.
Jeez.
I think they'll just be able to smile about that one for a while. And next year, hopefully they can come back in their minds and handle their business. So, long way of saying not as painful as it would be if they hadn't picked up that win late in the season.
Well, the Elixir's right down the road from Ford Field at Little Caesars. It's your Pistons going to Houston and killing a spry Rocket squad. That's one of the best teams in the Western Conference, allegedly, winning 7 of their last 10, and watching Jalen Durham turn into a new age Ben Wallace meets Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Well, you know what? You and I just talked about coaching, and look at the difference in the eyeball test this year to last year is crazy.
Yep.
From J.B. Bickerstaff and what he's doing this year to Monty Williams and whatever the heck he was doing last year. It is just watching this team. You don't need to be any sort of a basketball expert to just say, man, it's different. Their intensity is different. Their play is different. Their skills are different. What they're trying to achieve is different. And it's really fun to watch. And we're finally seeing some of these young players really develop. You mentioned Duran. Cade's obviously outstanding. They signed some veterans that have helped them, but just, full credit to this new regime for what they have done. And it just feels like finally that organization is headed in the right direction. It was a really nice win for them yesterday.
Who needs the microwave Vinnie Johnson or Adrian Dantley when you have Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr.? I mean, it's all it's all coming together for
man,
you, Dan.
If you got a couple guys that can shoot threes, it's everything. And those guys have been doing a nice job for them. So believe me, this team won whatever it was, 13 games last year. It was miserable, and it was just hard to watch. And it was just nothing that looked like it was headed in the right direction. And the abrupt turnaround this year has been something else.
Well, see, you and I are both from D.C. or the D.C. area, and we're close to the same age.
Sir.
I mean, my single mom had me at the Capitol Center in 79 for Elvin Hayes, Wes Unseld, and Kevin Greavy beating Lenny Wilkins, Seattle Supersonics, with Dennis Johnson, God rest his soul, Jack Sikma, and the rest of the gang. So when you...
I was at Game 6 in 78.
Wow.
But they won like 135-90.
Wow.
And then we watched them win it in Seattle in Game 7. I mean, that's one of my first loves. And anytime you want to do an hour talking Bullets basketball, I am with you, my friend. That was one of my first loves.
Yeah, we can start with Kevin Porter and the stop and go.
I'll do some Archie Clark with you.
Oh, hey.
We can talk unselled outlet passes.
Jeez.
We can talk Hayes. We can talk Jack Marin. We can keep going.
How much money Kevin Greavy was cost in contracts because there was no 3-point line? Same thing for downtown Freddie Brown for Seattle, right?
Yeah, that was pretty miserable. I mean, there was
awesome.
a team made the finals in 71, got swept, made the finals in 75, got swept, finally won it in 78, and then 79 it went miserable again. But those were some good teams, man.
Yeah.
Those were some fun teams. And I did so many interviews in Washington last week because I'm from there and people knew that, and I knew people in the media. And they all ask me, what's this mean to you? And I just say, look, I look at that football team and I look at the Bullets, and those are the people that gave me passion to do what I do in my life. That's where everything I love about sports came from.
Me too.
It's probably those two teams more than anything else.
Me too. Yeah, the Redskins at RFK, and I grew up right around there, southeast. And with the Bullets, I mean, go ahead. It was the San Antonio Spurs. They actually were in the Eastern Conference, and they had George Gervin and Larry Keenan and Mark Olberding, and they're leading the Bullets 3-1. Go ahead and say this in 2025, Dick Motta. The opera ain't over till the fat lady sings. Good luck with that.
Enter Bobby Dandridge. I mean, just absolutely great stuff. And I remember some of those games were blacked out, so I would listen to Frank Herzog on the radio.
Oh, wow.
Became a mentor of mine. And think about that. There's a guy, PA, who called NBA championships with the Bullets and NFL championships with Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, how cool is that?
And Ron Weber doing Capitals
hockey forever.
Yeah, Herzog was on 1500 WTOP. So, you know, no wonder you and I do what we do now. It's like we grow up listening to that, Then my mom gets divorced. I move to Los Angeles. I'm laying in bed listening to Chick Hearn and Ben Scully. Are you kidding me? All right.
Yeah, you checked all the boxes with those. That's as good as it gets.
As are you.
That's what takes little kids and makes them love this stuff. And I hope that somewhere out there, these little kids are falling in love with watching Justin Jefferson and Jared Goff and all this stuff, and it's what it's all about.
You're salt of the earth, and thank you very much for the conversation. Lastly, your best 10 seconds. You don't go to the Combine, right?
No.
Why?
No.
Why don't you go? I go every year, and I always look for you for interviews. Consider this.
For us, it's just for us on the TV side. It's a budget thing. I mean, we do go to league meetings where we get opportunities to talk to people.
It's a budget
and
thing.
then we do get all the interviews from like Campbell and Holmes and anybody to talk. Sent back by the team.
Well,
so
consider this.
It's a budget battle.
All right, the AFC South boxes. Frank Frangie, Matt Taylor. Mike Keith when he did the Titans, and Vandermeer with the Texans. Last year, right next to my table, they did this AFC South Summit. It was unbelievable. I mean, just hearing those guys talk about a bunch of things for like an hour. Joniak's always there. I'm there. Larry McCarron is there. All we're missing is you or Lomas. So if you don't go, send Lomas.
We're going to work on that. We're going to work on that. I do have more free time now, PA.
Yeah.
I have more free time.
Yep. All right. You're the very best. And, of course, we'll stay in touch. All right?
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Yep. Dan, the man on the fam, Dan Miller. Super cool box for the Motor City Kitties. It's post time for the cash thing.
Yeah, the fan wants to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand. It's the National Cash Contest. Go to KFAN.com, enter the keyword pay. P-A-Y. Simple word, and you might get paid as in $1,000. P-A-Y, the keyword is pay at KFAN.com.
Go ahead with the segment now.
Yeah, absolutely.
That between segment talk pretty good, wasn't it? Hey, get out of there. No, it's not your fault.
Oh.
It's my fault.
That's my fault.
Okay? Keep the money.
Didn't
see you later.
Didn't investigate properly.
Keep the money.
I think we could just move on with our lives here.
You're going to be okay. Just keep the money. May head down the street.
So I was listening to the Power Trip this morning, and Corey actually just kind of flippantly asked a random question. He's like, okay, Ben Johnson now with the Bears. Like, which division has the best crop of coaches?
Oh, dude.
So kind of, in throwaway segment, but just kind of still casting our gaze at the NFL at large.
Yeah.
A team that had 40 regular season wins among 3 teams that sadly went 0-3 in the postseason. We're in a spot right now where 4 teams are left, and we're not one of them.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the NFL and thinking about these coaches. So thank you to Corey for the idea.
The NFC North can't win. It can't win because
it's got the new guy.
Right. There's one coach who hasn't coached. And then there's another coach who is super reliant on 2 of his coordinators, and they're both going to be gone. I mean, Dan Cannon and LaFleur. Yeah, LaFleur does a great job. KO does a great job.
But I
like
think,
this.
I think you just, in a very basic manner, could like Dan Campbell might be losing his coordinators, but overall, terrific coach, right? Galvanizes people and leader of men.
I agree.
So I'm gonna start in the AFC. We'll roll through it.
Yeah, maybe we do the AFC today and the NFC tomorrow.
Okay, let's do the AFC because I think there's one division here that is as good as it could possibly get. But we'll talk it out.
Make sure to make this a poll on social and do a video after the show and put it on TikTok.
Okay, thanks, Abbott.
Thank you.
The Houston Texans, and you have D'Amico Ryans, of course. So through 2 seasons, is it a regression with the quarterback? Was it injuries? Half their team was hurt. Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, both season-ending injuries.
I'm nearly out on him.
You are
on D'Amico. I'm getting it's the regression of the quarterback after the rookie year. Is completely unacceptable.
Okay,
that's so you can blame super special Bobby Slowick. Or you can blame Diggs going down or whatever. He wasn't the same guy. He just wasn't the same guy the whole year.
Well, how much of that is, again, honeymoon period? So you think 2022, that's what makes this year so impressive in some ways. From my standpoint, this is how I personally look at it.
And saying I'm out on D'Amico Ryans was too strong. It's just let me get this out there.
Yeah.
He said with a straight face, Chris Boyd did not push the special teams coordinator with ill intent. Something like that. And then he basically is like, he's one that uses the word narrative. Yeah. Because he heard somebody else use it and it sounded cool. It's kind of like when I don't know, a certain quarterback gets to the line of scrimmage and he's like, well, I saw Tom Brady and Peyton Manning point at the middle linebacker and I heard Cam Newton say, ready! So I'm going to do all that and be a good quarterback.
Yeah.
It's online. I saw it a million times yesterday. He said, that's not the narrative. And what Chris did, he didn't say he didn't push the special teams guy, but he's like, it's okay with what he did because it was born of passion.
Really?
No, Chris Boyd should have been kicked out of the stadium that minute and put on the bus and basically said, you're welcome to leave if you want, but we're going to find a way to void your contract.
Right.
You sit here and listen to Vandermeer on the radio till this sucker's over. That's how egregious it was what Chris Boyd did early in that game.
And way to punk your special teams coordinator, too. The dude shoved me.
Brilliant.
And you're telling me it was born of passion? Like, that's all right? Like, that's acceptable?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't see that. No, that's absolutely awful. With that said, second year in, so we got D'Amico in Houston. Shane Steichen with the Colts. They're trying to figure they can't keep their QB healthy.
Just let me land the plane on this.
Yeah.
Texans coach, ESPN.com. Texans coach D'Amico Ryans said Monday cornerback Chris Boyd didn't push special teams coach Frank Ross in a disrespectful manner. Wow! After he nearly shoved him to the ground following the opening kickoff to the team's divisional playoff loss to the Chiefs last weekend. Quote the coach, I don't think he was pushing Frank in a disrespectful manner. I think it was more so he was fired up, overly fired up, and thought he made a play to help us. So that narrative that he's pushing a coach, that's incorrect. Again, this is somebody who saw somebody say the word narrative, thought it was cool, and now he's going to misuse it the rest of his life.
Yeah.
So that narrative, he's pushing a coach, that's incorrect. No, that's all he did was push the coach.
That is what he did.
How can you ascend to that level and think that way and say that?
And throwing his helmet.
Wow, I just don't understand how you do that, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's on video, so people will get to
it's
judge
not the
for
narrative,
themselves.
it's the fact.
It's not the narrative.
Anyway, so we got Steichen, we got Callahan, who I like a lot,
and then we got an open in the AFC South.
Oh, the Jags.
So we definitely know that the AFC South probably not the best coach division in the NFL, but they got options.
Yeah. You know what I really like about Brian Callahan is before they played the Vikings, you know how O'Connell has that Friday press conference talking about so-and-so's out and here's what I think of the other team and talk to you after the game on Sunday. Callahan, is his first name Brian?
I think it's Brian Callahan.
Yeah, and his father was the offensive line coach. Bill, thank you. Brian Callahan. He spent 90 of the most authentic seconds by saying Jonathan Grenard is the most underrated edge in the National Football League, and it's not even close. I'm like, okay, I heard that before. Not about him, but subterfuge, puffery, whatever you want, talking out both sides of your mouth.
Yeah.
He then went on for 90 seconds defining the things that Grenard does that are hard to see. Like, I saw this play against so-and-so, and it looks like it's all over. He undercuts the tackle to get to the guy's foot. If he doesn't get to that guy's foot, he's gone. And then he did this with his spin. And then he was double teamed, and his tenaciousness, his tenacity fought through it. I'm like, brah, that's like one of the best adversarial press conferences I've ever watched in my life.
That is super cool.
So I like him.
And now he's trying to trade for Jonathan Grenard, and now he's got a 3-14 team.
Yeah.
But that's the AFC South. AFC East, you have Sean McDermott in Buffalo.
Well, the AFC South ain't winning the bet.
No, the AFC South is out of the mix.
No, so where are you now, North?
Yeah, we'll go to the East.
Okay.
I'm saving the better two for last.
Yep. Open.
Sean McDermott with the Bills.
Yeah.
You have Mike McDaniel with the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
You have Mike Vrabel now, or if you want to grade it off of Gerard Mayo's one and done. I still think that's a tough spot for Mayo to fire him after 1 year. But anyway, maybe just shouldn't have put him in that spot in the first place.
Yeah.
In a can't win type of scenario, it felt like. But anyway, Vrabel's there now. And then you got the open, potentially Aaron Glenn with the Jets.
Every time I hear Mike McDaniel talk, I feel like I'm watching an episode of Beavis and Butthead. He just reminds me of Butthead, the way he talks. I'm like waiting for Todd to roll in with his tricked out Chevy behind them, complaining about the carburetor not working. The McDaniel cool press conferences, laissez-faire approach to things.
Yeah, I think the shine's wearing off.
I think it's wearing thin.
Yeah, he's just over 500 as a coach, and they have had injury issues and things, but still.
Welcome to the world,
the Tua contract combined with the Tua production. What are we doing here?
Yep.
You got
AFC East ain't winning.
Yeah, AFC East ain't winning.
It's not winning, right?
No, it's not.
So let's put Aaron Glenn with the Jets.
And Vrabel with the Pats.
And McDermott might win a Super Bowl.
McDermott's pretty good.
Yeah, I need to credit Sean McDermott here. He is very, very good. Because there have been some friction behind the scenes with the coaching staff there. Like Leslie Frazier was there, then he was gone for a year. Now he's back in Seattle. Mm-hmm. And Allen, like you said, out of Wyoming, people laughed at the Bills for taking Josh Allen because he was so inaccurate.
Right.
And then in the first playoff game against the Texans, he was terrible.
Yep.
His inaccuracy was horrible. Like, he got outplayed by Deshaun Watson. Just think about what I just said.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, from there and the work they put in, hey, A+. But to let Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis go and replace them with the skeletal remains of Amari Cooper and you draft Keon Coleman.
Yep.
And it's working?
And what is it, Ali Shakir maybe?
Yeah, Khalil Shakir. I couldn't think, I had Curtis Samuel on the wrong team yesterday. Almost had Shakir on the wrong team. Yeah, so I have a lot of respect for McDermott. I still, Vrabel hasn't done it here. McDaniel, Luster, maybe off. Jets don't have a coach. AFC East ain't winning the talker.
AFC West, it's going to be painful because we have to acknowledge that he has had some success as a coach, but you got Peyton.
Yeah.
And then you have Andy Reid. Andy Reid's HOF. The Raiders, open. Mm-hmm. And Jim Harbaugh brought the Niners to a Super Bowl, handled business in Michigan.
That's the favorite.
Hoist the trophy, and then now he's back with the Chargers, bringing that team that was moribund and destitute in ways to the playoffs his first year.
If I were Zim, I would call Mark Davis and ask for the head coaching job. Because Mark Davis might not look at Cowboys defensive film from last year.
That's a good point.
He might not read the quotes like when somebody left. He just might say, how much? Oh, wow. Okay, you're in.
I can't wait for how many obscure former player names are going to pop up with the Vegas Raiders in the upcoming weeks here.
AFC West favored so far. And finally, we have Cleveland the Calm.
Yep.
Pittsburgh Tomlin.
Yep.
Cincinnati Taylor. And
Baltimore Harbaugh.
Oh,
that's the answer.
Yeah, it's the answer. We haven't done the NFC.
This has actually turned out a lot easier than I thought.
Well, it's the answer to a certain extent.
But you got 2 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl appearances there, 2-time Coach of the Year in Cleveland.
Right.
Zach, and a 4th Super Bowl appearance from Cincinnati with Zach Taylor.
And man, we're getting hopelessly over here. Yeah. I'll save that for tomorrow. I'll be right back.
I can't wait until tomorrow.
9 to noon.
Might very well be too late.
Thanks to everybody for listening to 9 to noon today. Do we have the Ben Johnson Coaches Show coming up next, even though the team's at Iowa City?
No, I believe that Coaches Show is now moving to Wednesdays typically, but I believe that on this particular occasion, unless it's pre-recorded.
Yeah.
Frankly, I don't have the answer. That is the answer that I have for you, and I apologize.
Ben, if you're live, kick butt tonight against Iowa. If you're not, we look forward to listening to the Coaches Show. Otherwise, the program. Dan Cole, the Common Man around the corner. I'm Paul Allen for Nordo. Thank you, most importantly, for listening to The Fan when you do. And we're back at it when we rise and shine at 9. But now, first, so help you settle into a Tuesday. It's the vocal stylings of Big Daddy Khan.
I promise to come back tomorrow and actually be able to read a calendar to tell you what programming is happening on our own station.
Rap is an art. Khan is Picasso.
Sometimes the taste can be a little erratic. I suppose it's still better than listening to static. Sure, we're immature rubes, we're fanatics. Though our favorite teams are far from automatic. Man, it's cold, but we're fanning the flame. If you're overhyped for games, maybe we are to blame. Vikings fans should be chanting Jaden Daniels' name, rooting for Philly Follies to keep them in the game. And we broadcast with the best intentions. Listen to PA's calls, hoping for personal mentions. Jealous of playoff teams, innovative inventions. Back here, we're busy sweating off-season tensions. Now tomorrow, tow us in with a winch. Early show, I believe, we'll chat with Chris Finch. At the Mavs tomorrow, now no Luka, but no Cinch. Craving my Copenhagen days. Got a pinch?
Let's all grin in the Crescent City. Ending the charts. Let's all in the Crescent City.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.